Good morning, good day. 12th of Shvat, Hayom Yom. Hayom Yom. Today is the day. Every day is the day. That's all we have is days. Intellect and excitement are two separate worlds. Intellect is a world which is cold, settled, whereas excitement is a world which is seething, unsettled, tumultuous. This then is men's avoida, right? Moyach, shalat alaleh, right? Two separate worlds to bring them together, to fuse into one. Each will then have attributes of the other. The unchanneled tumultuous, the heart, then becomes transformed into focused brain power and aspiration, looking up. And the intellect becomes a guide in a life of avoida and action. Inter-inclusion of heart and brain. Okay. Pretty straightforward, I guess. I mean, at least the description is straightforward. The actual doing of it is what we're all about. Okay, Refuah Shleimus?
Menachem Yehuda Nisan ben Rezel Tzivia.
Mohammed Refuah Shleima. Oh.
Levi Yitzchak ben Elisha.
What Levi Yitzchak and then? Okay.
Ben Elisha, I'm sorry, this stupid thing.
And Elisha. Refuah Shleima B'Korev. Korev ben Yamin ben Rachel Blima. Refuah Shleima B'Korev. Others?
Chaim Bastara.
Refuah Shleima. Okay. The 12th of, where we are here, Lessons in Tanya. Lessons in Tanya is, where are we here? Page 278. Page 278. And the Kuti Morim. 278. Excuse me, Kaf Vav. 26. Sorry. Okay, what we're discussing. We're discussing a seeming paradox. Seeming. Then on the one hand, Ein Ed Movado. There is nothing besides him. On the other hand, there are infinite things besides him. Worlds without end is expression. Oilimus ein case. Worlds without end. How do these two things get together? Sort of on the theme of our Yom Yom, right? Brain is opposite heart. Heart, how do they get together? Okay, so what we will be describing here is basically how the singularity has embedded within it the potential for multiplicity, and the process of creation is bringing forth from that point of simplicity, manifesting the multiplicity which is within it. And we'll describe it a bit today. Key, because is Havis Kol Oilamus, the bringing into being of all worlds, upper worlds and lower worlds. In general, it means the spiritual worlds and the physical worlds, but it also means the hierarchy of worlds from Atzilus on down. So bringing that into being, his havos, that's the word to be, to bring that into being, na'ayin layesh, from literally nothing to something, but as we've understood, and hopefully by this time over and over, ayin means, and it's a good way of looking at it, I think, in the English word, no thing. It doesn't mean that there's nothing there. It means there's no thing thingness there. There's no substantiality. There's no tangibility there. There's no definition there. And to bring it into tangibility, thingness, and definition is a process called ayin liyesh, but it's a huge gap, like the gap between seichel, between brain and heart, coldness versus heat, right? And yet the two get together. They don't extinguish each other. It's a huge gap, ayin liyesh. So the process of bringing things into being from ayin liyesh, b'chiyusam, and then enlivening them. So here we have two levels, which is called out quite explicitly in the Maimer Basilagani we learn. Hishavos is the higher level, bringing things into being. They have now a metzius, an actuality, but they don't yet have a fleshed out definition. The highest, they don't have the highest that they need in order to become something substantial. And the next level down will be koyach. So you have three levels. It's havis, to become, bring into being, the hachiyes, to enliven them, and to bring them into koyach, to give them power and definition. So his habis, to come from his habis and then bring into chiyus, into chayus, the kiyumim, that's the third level, that they should actually have substantial existence. That threefold step downward, a mekayim, that they should actually last and exist in the way that they have been meant to be created, with the sun, with its heat and its breadth and width and size and all its characteristics. I'm just using the sun as an example. So that these things don't return to being in a state of ayin. So just to say the sentence again, to bring things from ayin liyesh, to bring them into being, to enliven them, and to give them kiyum, and to keep them in a state of kiyum, in existence, that they should remain extant, so that they don't return to ayin v'efes, keshehoya, as they were. Eina ela devar Hashem. That's only due to the speech of Hashem, as we'll elaborate at length in Shahar Yichud Ve'emunah, on the famous mashal, where we liken Hashem's activities to a human activity, that Hashem speaks, so to speak, the world into existence. And if the Hashem were to stop speaking for a moment, the world would revert. Just like you and I, if we were to stop speaking, there would be no external reality coming out from us. That would just disappear. It would stop. So if the Hashem weren't, so to speak, speaking the world into existence continually, the world would revert to the state of the inner, deeper states that the world was in before, which was ayin. So it needs the consistency of the Davar Hashem, the speech of Hashem, Ruach Piv, and the breath of his mouth. These, of course, are anthropomorphic understandings. Hashem doesn't really speak. Hashem really doesn't have a mouth. But the Torah itself tells us that Hashem gave us the ability to understand him through understanding ourselves. That's one of the reasons we're called Adam. Adam is Chazal Darshan for it, Adama La'elyon, Adam, Adama. We are compared to the supernal one himself. And we have many things like this. Just as he is merciful, we should be merciful, etc. So we're comparing God's effusion from his simplicity into multiplicity to our speech. So this is the Devar Hashem, the Ruach Piv, and the breath of the mouth, which is enclosed Lahem in his expressions as he comes outward from himself. Ula mashal. And now he gives this mashal plainly and openly. Just like in the soul of a person, when the person speaks something, one thing, this speech alone, this one thing that he speaks, Kalei mamish is like nothing. Mamish, actually, it's actually like nothing. Afilu lagabi klalas nefesh hamedaberes, even in relation to the entirety of the speaking soul. The power of speech, which is invested in the soul, which he calls here the speaking soul, just as in other places there's called the nefesh hamaskelis, the intellectual soul, these condensations of power, which in this case is the condensation of the power in the soul to speak, which is a middle garment. Remember the three garments: thought, speech, and action. So speech is in the middle between thought and action. So this is a middle garment, shelo, of the soul. Shehu koyach ediber. That's the third level down. Koyach. We had his havos, we have being, and then we had chayas, to enliven, and then we have koyach. So koyach is the power to speech. It actually gives form, external form, to things which have been going on internally. The internal form, which is machshava, now becomes externalized. A person can speak without end, and even without any tachlis, without any purpose. And how much more so, how much more so is this something which comes from a deeper level, right? The speech comes from, and where would you want to look to find where it comes from? You'd look in the power, the levush, the more panemius, the more inner garment of the soul, shalah, of the soul, shehu amachshava, which is thought. Shememenu nimshichu hadaburim. So you see where we're going here. We're looking at the instantiation of multiplicity and working our way back to the root of it in utter simplicity, utter singularity. So we start anthropomorphically, we start with speech. Speech comes out of the mouth, but let's say if you're not speaking without a tachlis, in other words, when you're speaking with tachlis, with meaning, where's that meaning come from? That meaning comes from a deeper level, which is thought. And that's where the speech is drawn from. The hi chiyusim, and that inner level of thought, there's the word chayus, right? Hishavis and chayus. This is the chayus of the speech. Vein sorek loimer, and it goes without saying, legabe mahus ve'atzmis nefesh, that this source of speech, which is machshava, has a root itself, and in relation to that root, it's also that the thought is also external. So legabe mahus ve'atzmis nefesh, which is the more deeper levels of the soul, which are what? The deeper levels of the soul. We won't go to the essence of the soul yet. We've got more levels. The source of that, which is more essential, deeper level of the soul, is the Eser Bechinias, the 10 categories, the 10 koichos, from Chabad to Malchus, which are analogous to the Eser Sphiros. We have Chabad, Bechulu, Chabad, Chagas, Nahim, Shemehem, which from them, looking now from the source of the source of the source, the approximate source of reality is speech. The source of that is machshava. The source of that is the Eser Bechinias. And from those Eser Bechinias, these 10 categories, nimshichu oisis machshava, that's where the letters of thought come from. Machshava zu, this thought that you are having. Hamulu beshes b'dibur zeh, which is enclosed in whatever speech you're speaking, shemedarba, that you're speaking. Ki hamachshava, thought, he gam came bechinas oisius. When you think about it, when you think about thought, you'll think about and realize that thought is also in a category of letters. Now I will editorialize a little bit as I've thought about this over the years. Ois is also a sign. And so there are other notations besides letters. There are musical notations. There are visual notations. Point being that the mind has the quality of being an approximate source for some instantiation of something which ultimately will be expressed in poil, koyach poil, which will be the maisa, whether the maisa is the instrument or the maisa is the brush, or the Maisa is the language. But plain and simple, Isis means letters. Back to inside. The kin is Isis. Kamayadiba, like speech. But the source of speech, which is thought, though thought is contained in letters, yes, these letters are ruchnius, vedakus yoser, and much more refined than the letters which come out from speech. So we're on our way to understanding how yesh, unlimited, ad ein tachlis, without any amayla amad en kates, lamata ad ein tachlis, above without any limit, with boundaries, without, and down below without any limits, how that happens from the singularity, which is ein od milvado. That's today's Tanya. Okay, Zoom user. Who is Zoom user? I never know who Zoom user is. Hand up.
Good morning. Hello.
Raise it. Okay, right.
So as you were looking at this, my thought was that there's this two types of speech. There is one type of speech which we could talk on and on and on. And he says, aim kates v'tachlis. You could talk endlessly and to no purpose. But what there is a shortage of is thought, is to speak with machshava and with purpose.
Yes.
Good. And it's a very good goal. It's a very good goal. Most of what we say is not with thought and not with purpose. And it's a wonderful goal. You know, I remember hearing someone, there was a speaker, his name is Rabbi Victor Miller. He has a very interesting background because he was very much revered as a Torah giant in the yeshiva community, but he would not, I don't know what he would be. I can't say what he would be or wouldn't be, but his teacher, he was in Baltimore, his parents are very poor. He went to public school and his teacher was Chabad, and the first thing he learned was Tanya.
Didn't know that. I didn't know that about him. Thank you.
In any case, so what he said was, and this is true of every tzaddik, is that he once took someone who was new to Judaism to a gadol. He didn't say who the tzaddik was. And he asked him afterwards what his impression was. And he said, he doesn't answer right away.
He's thoughtful. He gives a thoughtful answer. It's beautiful, yes. Even though all speech is empowered by thought, it's not necessarily empowered by thoughtfulness. And we should speak with thoughtfulness. That's a great point. Thank you. Aviva, you're up.
Aviva? So the garments are higher than the soul, right?
The garments are lower than the soul. Garments, the soul dresses itself in garments. Shabadiba and Maisa are the garments of the soul.
The garments of so if these garments have their source in a higher place,
in the soul itself.
At what point does it differentiate into individual expression?
Well, individual expression is at all levels. I mean, let's take the levels we talked about here. I mean, there are many other levels, from top to bottom. The eser koichos of a person, the 10 powers of the person, and we use them as a source for thought and then speech. We didn't go to action yet, right? So, although everyone has eser koichos, those eser koichos are themselves stylized, if you should say such a thing, can say such a thing. That's as our soul is stylized, right? The very root of our soul, each one of us may have, and it's often the case, that we have different soul roots. So even back at the root of the neshama, differentiation starts. And differentiation starts as soon as you're out of essence. Atzmus, no differentiation. Tachlis hapashitas, that's the expression of Atzmus. Tachlis hapashitas, utterly simple. Nothing you can say about it, no parameters, no definitions, simplicity. As soon as you're out of that, you're into differentiation. First, he created, well, he used the metaphor of speech, but Shemayim Ba'oretz. He differentiated between the upper and the lower. So differentiation starts way back, any point after Asmas. But then this differentiation takes on more and more, let's call them, well, discrete on the one hand. There's a whole thing called Shemayim, right? But then Shemayim gets differentiated into 7 heavens, right? And then the celestial bodies, etc. So differentiation gets more and more differentiated. But to answer your question, differentiation starts as soon as you're out of essence. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's all right.
Okay, good enough. Okay. Anybody else?
We do learn that the garments elevate the soul, right?
Sure. Yeah. It's like a person puts on, a nice suit, and that has effect on your midos. So yes, there's an isarusa de la sato that creates an arousal at a higher level. Sure. And ultimately, it's our deed. We keep coming back to this all the time, right? Why does Hashem want a dwelling place in the lower world? And meaning not just the world of thought. He doesn't want us to go around being intellectuals. He wants deed, down Maisa. We didn't even speak about Maisa, right? We just talked about speech. Because Maisa hua ikar. Because essence is encapsulated. This is itself the deepest, one of the deepest paradoxes, that though essence comes down in Seder Histalshalis, which is what we've described, the Histalshalis, we took one little group of Histalshalis, Machshava and Dibur, from the power of Seichel in the brain to Machshava and Dibur, very small, piece of the Seder Histalshalis. But the biggest Chiddush is that Atzmus itself is contained in the lowest world. Ma'aseh hu'aika, in the lowest, the deed. So yes, the Levushim are important, yes, for creation and for us to create and be involved in the world, but they're important also because they are the vehicles by which we elevate the entire Gestalt, the entire cosmos. Okay. Somebody here. Reza, are you up again, Reza?
It just brings forth, our speech is very important. We're talking here about there's a power in speech.
Yeah.
And we have a spark, a godly spark within us. And there's a power in words. And we could do a lot with our words.
You have to be very careful with your words, right? Lashon Kodesh, Lashon HaKodesh, and Lashon Hora, the same tongue. Be careful with it. In fact, who was, I forget his name, is the founder of the Muslim movement. I don't remember.
Maybe Rabbi Yisrael Salanter.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Yisrael Salanter said that when you go above, the sins of the tongue are the worst of all. Remember, the sins of the tongue brought the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. Lashon Hora. Be careful. And maybe that's a good bechein for today. I will try at least. Be careful with my mouth, what I say and how I say it, because you can build and destroy worlds with it. Anybody else?
I like the addition of "and how I say it," because also you could say the right thing, and you have to be aware of your tone.
That's right. That's right. Okay, if nothing else, we'll say au revoir until tomorrow.
Thank you.